in faith, and the rest is history. So, but you know what? Like I having a joke about that period of time in Mandurah, like why have you called us here? It actually was a really hard season, and we can have seasons in our lives, whether it's places we are in or parts of our lives that feel like that. What are you doing in my life, Lord? It feels like a stuck season. It feels like a desert season before you understand what God is actually doing in that place. That's the place where nothing seems to move and doors don't open, and you're asking God, where are you? Why have you called me here? Why am I here? There's a great story in the Bible of the Israelites coming out of Egypt, God calling them out of Egypt and going into the promised land, but they had to endure the desert season. You see, they left Egypt, a place for Egypt for them was a place of bondage, and they were on their way to where God was calling them to the promised land, which was a place of blessing. It's that in between, it's right in that middle is where they hit the desert. And that's what my title tonight is, While in the Desert. While in the desert. You see, it's often in the middle is when our faith gets tested. See, we had a clear as day word. God was opening the door for us to be in Mandurah. But even in that 2 years, I was like, really? I start questioning it. How more specific can you get? But yet, because I couldn't see what he was doing, I'm like, what? It gets tested. It gets tested. So it's not when we start and not when we arrive. The faith gets tested often in the middle when we're in the desert. You see, we all have desert moments. We could be on a mountaintop right now, but, in the coming weeks, we may face some desert valley low seasons, some desert moments, some in-between moments. So this story about the Israelites is found in Exodus. I'm going to read Exodus 16, verse 2 to 3. It says, in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. So that Moses was leading the Israelites. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There they sat with pots of meat. There we sat with pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us into the desert to starve this entire assembly to death. You see, what happened was the Israelites had forgot why they had been brought out. They forgot that they were actually an oppressed people. In this desert season, they forgot what had gone on in Egypt, that God was delivering them from. They had forgotten that they were slaves. They started thinking back, like, why am I here? They had forgotten why they were walking through the wilderness to get to the promised land. And they started taking their frustration out on other people, frustration out on God, instead of bringing it to the Lord. Exodus 16, verse 2 to 3, that I just read, I want to highlight that they grumbled against Moses and Aaron. So they start getting frustrated against people. You see, unity went out the window. It went out the window. They forgot who had brought them out, that God had brought them out. And they started blaming Moses and Aaron when they were following God's lead. Let's not forget who has called you. Amen. Do not forget who has called you. We sometimes do the same thing. Often we get in times that are tough and we forget who has called us out. We forget that God has called us to take this step. It might not be a desert season, like I said before. It might be a specific area in your life and you've stepped out, but it's not happening the way you think it should happen. But if God has called you out, don't forget that. He's going to see you through to the promised land. Don't get frustrated. We can get frustrated. We can get frustrated with the situation. We can get frustrated with family members, spouse, leaders, bosses, whatever what your world is, whether it's even pastors, department leaders, didn't do things the way that we think it should be done. I don't understand why it's not looking the way it should be, that I think it should be done. So what we do is we start murmuring, we start gossiping, we start complaining. We look sideways instead of looking up to God. We go sideways to others instead going, God, why? Help me understand why. Help me to keep my focus on you. You see, the Israelites thought they were complaining about Moses and Aaron, but Moses' response is, you're not grumbling against us, you're grumbling against the Lord.
Yeah.
You're grumbling against the Lord. Quite often in those situations we are complaining and all of that, and we think it's just, the complaints is really only just about the situation. But if God's walking us, calling us through that and walking us through that, ultimately we're grumbling and complaining about God. About God. You see, it was God who called them out because He was taking them to a promised land. God has called you on the journey that you're walking. He has called